Okay, I wasn't planning on making another video so soon. As I said in my last video, what I wanted to do was focus on what the solutions to our problems are and what we have to think about in the future as far as making a very even economy, like an equitable type of economy that doesn't have huge booms and busts and doesn't have stagflation and all this other stuff. And I've not gotten to that because what's happened again is we have more bad news, which comes out every single day, it seems. So we have let's just see here, budget deficit projected to be $39.8 billion, I do believe, this year. So there's huge spending. Now, some of the spending they claim is for building houses. I'll believe it when I see it. Or housing of some type. I'll believe it when I see it. Like what they have to do in order to catch up to where we are today as far as population growth goes is it's going to be a real challenge. And the other thing that happened is that the capital gains tax. So people that have never dealt with capital gains in the past, generally, when you have capital gains, let's say you own a house that you're renting and you sell that house and you have made money versus what you paid for the house, that would be a capital gain, and you pay capital gains tax on that. But typically, capital gains, you only pay tax on 50% of what your profit is, right? And it's the same thing for certain types of stocks that you may be awarded as an employee or as a CEO. And there are other things if you incorporate your business, there are capital gains. But the point is that typically only 50% of what you earn is taxed. And then it's taxed similar to income. That is being increased for individuals for anything over, I do believe, $250,000. It is being increased to 66.7%, like two-thirds of the income will be taxed. And this starts in June, like around June 25th. So anything earned after that, right? That's for individuals, but for corporations, it applies. That rate applies to all capital gains. Okay, so why are they doing this? Well, there is something that's in the public mind, and I think that it is right for this to be in the public mind, and that is that, for example, CEOs are often given huge packages of stocks rather than salary. As payment from the company. And part of that is, this, if you can cause the stock to go up in value, it's going to be good for you as the CEO and good for the company. So they say, right? And so part of it is, rewarding the CEO for good performance with the stocks that should go up in value while that person is CEO. And they can make off with a lot of cash. But, people have cottoned on to the fact that CEOs are paid an enormous amount of money, a ridiculously enormous amount of money a lot of the times, and that they're only paying tax on 50% of what they make from these stocks, right? It's a little bit of a backdoor way of giving the CEO as much money as you can, with them being taxed as little as possible. And I understand the frustration and anger at that. And from a political standpoint, I'm sure it's going to play well to the base. But what it won't do is resolve any of the issues that I've mentioned in my previous videos. So our two issues are that, we have pumped all of our money into real estate, and we are not investing in productivity. And by that, I mean we're really not investing in research and development, entrepreneurship. And I've said before, I worked for two startup companies that ended up being taken over by American companies because in Canada, it's very hard to get that investment privately, right? And it's also very, not every company needs to go public. And we're seeing this a lot more these days, that companies don't necessarily want to go public. There's a lot of private money out there. But the private money doesn't seem to be in Canada. And so if we want to foster entrepreneurship, there has to be some kind of reward for getting involved in this and taking all the risks and investing all of your money. And what we're saying now is, well, we're going to tax that at a higher rate. Now, a lot of people could turn around and say, yeah, but they're talking about over $250,000. Listen, some people work at a company or invest in a company that they are involved in, and it takes them 7 or 8 years to finally get a payout. And that payout may be $500,000, $800,000. It might even be $1 million, which sounds like a lot of money to people. But what we're saying is when you get that payout now, we're going to be taking more tax money off of that. So you have to look at it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Why would you do that here versus doing it somewhere else where you're going to be taxed lower, right? And I know a lot of people would say, well, because you're Canadian, why don't you invest in Canada? Okay, that's great. But as I've already said, I've worked at two very good companies where we tried to get investment from Canada, and it's almost impossible. So we're just making things worse now, right? So this is going to be a problem. We needed to turn around our productivity, and we are doing the exact opposite. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't work on the issue that CEOs can be making, I don't know 1,000 times more than an employee and paying a lower percentage of tax. Okay, that's an issue. And not only that, the system driving up stock prices can be a very short-term focused mindset, right? And it may not be doing good for the company in the long term. Some CEOs get huge bonus packages simply because they laid off a bunch of people and their balance book looks better. Is that better for the economy? Is that better for the company in the long term? Probably not. Well, it's definitely not good for the economy. But then they're there laying people off, and at the same time paying only 50% on their capital gains for the stocks that they are awarded there. So I understand there are all these problems, but this blanket approach, and some people would say it's not a blanket approach because of the $250,000 for individuals. But I've already explained some of these individuals those capital gains could come after years and years of work. But the way they're going to have to handle that is to say, okay, well, when I get capital gains, when my company after 6 years is suddenly making money, and I'm going to be getting capital gains or on whatever I've invested in, I'm not going to sell any more than a certain amount because I'm going to be taxed at a higher rate. And so it'll just push it out. But so what I'm saying is there's two different issues here. Tax avoidance, which isn't illegal, it's just smart thinking. An RRSP is a tax avoidance, right? And the other thing would be not selling stocks in a given year. And so what ends up happening is that potentially actually over the short to midterm, revenues could go down because there'll be less investment. People be stretching out when they're going to sell stuff. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's not a magic bullet. It's not going to make the economy more equitable because there's going to be further and further holes in the economy that are destroying our productivity and are leading to, like, the job losses that we're now starting to see in Ontario. Well, in Canada. We're not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly where those job losses were. But the other thing is, I've been told that I'm crazy for a decade because I was saying, listen, we have to start charging some type of capital gains on all house sales, whether you live there or not. And the pearl clutchers were so offended. But we haven't done that, and now we're in a place where a house in Toronto is easily over $1 million in any working class neighborhood. So it was unsustainable. We didn't do anything about it. And we could have definitely made some money from that capital gains tax to actually pump back into building more housing if we wanted to do that. So I'm calling BS on the entire Liberal plan. You did nothing over the last, 10 years to prevent this bubble pyramid scheme of housing to continue. And now you're saying you're going to fix it by further derailing productivity in this country, and then having the government, through taxation, plan to build housing. I will believe it when I see it. I do not believe that they're competent or capable at this point in time. Every decision they seem to have made is the wrong decision. And the only thing that can actually fix this economy, and I'm not a huge capitalist, this is supposed to be a left-wing show, right? But the only thing that's going to fix the economy is the complete and utter failure of the economy at this point, because there is no one politically that understands what's going on. And if they do, they are pandering to people's emotions by saying we're going to tax the rich. It's not going to make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we're already seeing there's a projected deficit, So the plan isn't working out. Things are going to continue to get worse. And not only that, if we do see that productivity goes down even further, and we do see that entrepreneurship starts really caving in Canada, the Canadian dollar is going to start going down too. Because the only thing we'll have left is our ridiculously overpriced housing market, a bit of manufacturing, and oil. So this is not a good news budget at all. It doesn't show any creative thinking at all. It's a knee-jerk reaction, and it's not going to save us from what's coming. So anyway, hope everyone's happy with that. What else can I say? Have a good weekend, and you know what? The playoffs start tonight. Good luck to the Leafs. I'm in Toronto, so hopefully they can get past the Bruins this year, right? Have a good weekend.